A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans. I know of nothing good living in me, living, that is, in my unspiritual self. For the will to do what is good is in me, the performance is not, with the result that instead of doing the good things I want to do, I carry out the sinful things I do not want. When I act against my will, then it is not my true self doing it, but sin which lives in me. In fact, this seems to be the rule, that every single time I want to do good, it is something evil that comes to hand. In my inmost self, I dearly love God's law, but I can see that my body follows a different law that battles against the law which my reason dictates. This is what makes me a prisoner of that law of sin, which lives inside my body. What a wretched man I am. Who will rescue me from this body doomed to death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Lord, teach me your statutes.
Lord, teach me your statutes.
Teach me discernment and knowledge, for I trust in your commands. You are good and your deeds are good. Teach me your statutes. Teach me your statutes. Let your love be ready to console me, by your promise to your servant. Let your love come to me and I shall live, for your law is my delight.
Lord, teach me your statutes.
I will never forget your precepts, for with them you give me life. Save me, for I am yours, since I seek your precepts.
Lord, teach me your statutes.
Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Blessed are you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, for revealing the mysteries of the kingdom to mere children. Alleluia.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said to the crowds, "When you see a cloud looming up in the west, you say at once that rain is coming, and so it does. And when the wind is from the south, you say that it will be hot, and it is. Hypocrites, you know how to interpret the face of the earth and the sky. How is it you do not know how to interpret these times? Why not judge for yourselves what is right? For example, when you go to court with your opponent, try to settle with him on the way, or he may drag you before the judge, and the judge hand you over to the bailiff, and the bailiff have you thrown into prison. I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the very last penny." The Gospel of the Lord. I was going to shamelessly name drop and say that Saint Pope John Paul II had actually met him, and therefore I could claim that I had met a saint. And I realized, and part of the reason I struggle to get the phraseology right about that is that what I should say is that I'd met a canonized saint, because I suspect in truth that I have met numerous saints, certainly in the various parishes in which I've served, including this one, people of extraordinary holiness and service and humility and commitment and qualities which mark them out truly as saints. I think it's one of the hallmarks of Pope John Paul II's ministry. I read somewhere that on average he canonized a saint every 6 days, and that he had canonized more saints during his pontificate than his predecessors put together. It seems to me he was underlining that sense of the call to each and every one of us to be a saint, and that it is possible, that numerous people have found it possible in their lives. that this is not a rarefied thing. And therefore, I suspect we need to be very careful, I say, about that second-guessing how many saints we've met or know. And it's why I wanted to quote from the homily of the then Cardinal Ratzinger at the funeral of Pope John Paul II. To give it its context, it was, you recall, just after Easter, and they'd had the Gospel of the Good Shepherd, so that was part of the influence in what he was saying. But he spoke about various stages of his life. And indeed, last night, quite late, I found myself watching a documentary about his time as Pope. But again, part of the problem is you think this is extraordinary. The world leaders he influenced, the events he was part of, etc. And it seemed something unattainable. So I wanted to go to the section of the homily. Cardinal Ratzinger looked at various stages of John Paul II's life. And one stage he'd looked at was his student days and becoming a priest. And it seemed to me that makes it accessible in the sense that we can relate to someone whose life is about work and about, well, you're here. And we can pray that he will inspire us and indeed our young people to that same strength of faith and that same attentiveness to the voice of God, because Cardinal Ratzinger kept interspersing the homily with that sense of follow me. Follow me. As a young student, Karol Wojtyła was thrilled by literature, the theatre, and poetry. He worked in a chemical plant, surrounded and threatened by Nazi terror, and he heard the voice of the Lord, follow me. In this extraordinary setting, he began to read books of philosophy and theology, and then entered the clandestine seminary established by Cardinal Sapieha. After the war, he was able to complete his studies in the Faculty of Theology in the University of Krakow. How often in his letter to priests and in his autobiographical books has he spoken to us about his priesthood, to which he was ordained on the 1st of November 1946. In these texts, he interprets his vocation with particular reference to 3 sayings of the Lord. First, you did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last. The second, the Good Shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. And then, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. In these 3 phrases, we see the heart and soul of our Holy Father. He really went everywhere untiringly in order to bear fruit that lasts. Rise up, let us be on our way, is the title of his next to last book. Rise up, let us be on our way. With these words, he rouses us from lethargic faith, from the sleep of the disciples of yesterday and today. Rise up, let us be on our way, he continues to say to us, even today. The Holy Father was a priest to the last, for he offered his life to God for his flock and for the entire human family in a daily self-obligation for the service of the Church, especially amid the sufferings of his final months. In this way, he became one with Christ, the Good Shepherd, who loves his sheep. Finally, abide in my love. The Pope, who tried to meet everyone who had an ability to forgive and to open his heart to all, tells us once again today with these words of the Lord, that by abiding in the love of Christ, we learn at the school of Christ the art of true love.